Today, we uncover the shocking truth about UK supermarkets. Right now, while you're doing your weekly shop, thinking you're making smart choices for your family, something deeply wrong is happening. Major supermarket chains are selling you food that's been sitting past its safety limits. We're talking 18 days past the use-by date. Employees are literally telling us they can't keep up with checking dates, so customers are finding expired products themselves. We've got rodents running through food transport trailers. Meanwhile, supermarkets have all the time and money in the world for installing facial recognition technology that scans every single person who walks through their doors, partnering with police intelligence units to build biometric databases while you're just trying to buy milk. But it gets worse. Some of these chains were bought out by private equity firms who loaded them with billions in debt. And now that debt is being paid for by cutting staff, letting hygiene standards collapse to 0 stars, and watching quality spiral downward while executives walk away with £5 million salaries. We're seeing E. coli outbreaks in ready-made foods during a 26% national spike in cases, glass shards in premium bottled water, meat products where the actual meat content has been slashed from 97% down to a pathetic 72%, and you're still paying premium prices for what's basically water and flour. The chicken nuggets you think are good value, 39% chicken. Compare that to the budget alternative with 60% and you start to see the game. Loyalty card schemes that discriminate by age, locking young people out of fair pricing. Stores removing best before dates from fresh produce so you can't prove the food is old when it goes moldy in your fridge 2 days later. And all of this while British families are struggling more than ever, being told these supermarkets care about value and quality and your well-being. The thing is, people aren't shopping at just one supermarket anymore. You can't. The big weekly shop at one place doesn't work like it used to because the entire system has quietly changed. What we've done is go through the evidence from which consumer surveys, Food Standards Agency records, undercover investigations, and real testimonials from employees and drivers. And we're going to show you the 7 supermarkets you absolutely should not rely on for your main shop, the specific failures at each one, and then we'll tell you the 4 that are actually still getting it right and what you should use them for. But here's the thing, if this information matters to you, if you're tired of being treated like you don't deserve to know what's really happening with your food, then I need you to do something right now. Hit that hype button, not just the like, hit hype, because every time you do, it tells the algorithm this matters. It pushes this video to more people, and the more people who see this, the more pressure these corporations face to actually fix their standards. We're not just making videos here, we're building awareness, and awareness creates accountability. When enough people know what's happening, these companies can't hide anymore. They have to respond. So if you believe families deserve better than expired food and surveillance checkpoints just to buy groceries, hit hype right now. Let's make them pay attention. Number 7. Asda. This one hurts because Asda used to be the champion of working families. That's Asda Price. Remember? The whole brand was built on being the affordable, reliable place where ordinary people could do a proper weekly shop without getting rinsed. But in 2021, something changed. The Issa brothers and TDR Capital bought Asda in a leveraged buyout, which is a fancy way of saying they borrowed massive amounts of money to buy it, then loaded Asda itself with that debt. And now Asda has to pay it back. In 2024, they lost £599 million. That's not a typo. They went from £180 million in profit to losing nearly £600 million. Their interest bill alone in 2025 was £390 million, up 56% from the year before. And Reuters reported in 2026 that the owners are now exploring a possible future sale, which tells you everything about what this was really about. They weren't buying a supermarket to run a supermarket. They were buying an asset to extract value from. But forget the financial stuff for a second. Let's talk about what you actually experience when you shop there, which ranked Asda bottom for both in-store and online shopping in 2026, dead last. Customers specifically complained about poor service, long queues, terrible online substitutions, lack of promotions, and shelves that just aren't stocked. Product availability dropped from 91.4% to 90.3%, which sounds small until you realize that's the difference between finding what you need and leaving frustrated. Sales are down 5 to 6% year on year. Market share collapsed from 17% in 2013 to 12.6% in 2024. Staff are walking out, there have been strikes. An internal survey showed less than half of workers feel confident in the company's strategy. And here's the part that should genuinely worry you. In Cardiff alone, Asda was fined £640,000 for selling food past its use-by date. In one Merseyside store, they found ham 18 days past the safety limit. 18 days. That's not a minor oversight, that's food sitting on shelves for nearly 3 weeks after it became unsafe to eat. And an employee, an actual Asda worker, told us this. We are understaffed. Managers sit in the office all day. 70% of staff work 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and there are very few staff in the evening when it actually gets busy. 1 employee per 5 aisles. Out-of-date items, customers are taking them out for us. Read that again. The customers are finding the expired food because there aren't enough staff to check. Shoppers are doing the quality control that Asda should be doing because the company won't hire enough people to do the job properly. That's not an accident. That's what happens when you're servicing £390 million in annual debt payments instead of investing in the people who actually run your stores. The employee went on to describe the reality of working there. In a shift, how is one person going to fill aisles and then check the dates when no one else is coming to do that later? The answer is they can't. It's impossible. So corners get cut, safety gets compromised, and you, the customer, end up buying food that could make you seriously ill because the staffing model is designed to maximize profit extraction, not food safety. The workers know it's wrong. They're not incompetent. They're drowning under impossible expectations created by owners who care more about debt repayment than whether your ham is safe to eat. And it's not getting better. They spent £800 million on a failed IT project that caused payroll chaos. Workers couldn't get paid properly. The system didn't work. £800 million down the drain, while shelves stay empty and food expires. They started an Aldi price match scheme with big fanfare, claiming they were fighting for working families, then quietly axed it after 12 months because even that couldn't save them from the financial hole they're in. This isn't a supermarket anymore. It's a financial extraction operation that happens to sell groceries, and you're the one paying for it with higher prices, worse service, empty shelves, and food you literally can't trust is safe to eat. Every time you shop at Asda now, you're essentially funding a debt repayment scheme while getting the worst shopping experience in Britain. That's what private equity does. It takes something that worked, loads it with debt, extracts every penny of value, and leaves you with the husk. Number 6. Morrisons. If Asda is the cautionary tale, Morrisons is the other side of the same coin. In 2021, they were bought by Clayton, Dubilier and Rice in a £7 billion leveraged buyout. Reuters reported that Morrisons now carries around £3 billion of net debt, the highest debt level of any UK supermarket. The company's own management has said there's intense focus on reducing that debt, which is corporate speak for we're cutting everything we can to make the numbers work. And those cuts, you see them every time you walk into a Morrisons. Debt servicing costs over £400 million annually. That's £400 million that could be going to quality ingredients, proper staffing, better hygiene standards. Instead, it's going straight to private equity investors, which put Morrisons joint bottom with Asda for in-store shopping in 2026. But the hygiene situation is arguably worse. Multiple Morrisons stores, including locations in Bristol and Chingford, were given 0-star hygiene ratings. That's not a bad rating, that's urgent improvement required. That's failing basic health and safety standards. And it's not random. When a company is buried under a debt mountain, the first thing that gets cut is staff. When you cut staff, cleaning stops, you get 0-star ratings. It's that simple. Then in December 2024, right before Christmas, Morrisons got hit with a ransomware attack. The Blue Yonder cyber attack disrupted their warehouse operations during the peak shopping season. And a technical glitch 2 days before Christmas caused absolute chaos for customers trying to do their holiday shop. Shoppers have been complaining for years now that Morrisons is badly stocked, expensive, and that fresh produce goes off quickly. The stores feel cramped, checkouts are understaffed, which complaints back this up consistently. Former suppliers have gone on record saying they were forced to reduce ingredient quality or lose their contracts entirely. Former employees revealed that the in-store bakeries which used to be one of Morrisons' big selling points, now mostly just heat up frozen dough. They're not baking from scratch anymore. The butcher counters, staffed by actual trained butchers, have been replaced with pre-packaged meat from central facilities. Everything that made Morrisons different, everything that made them the antidote to industrialized food, is being stripped away to service debt. This used to be a supermarket that stood for British heritage, for making it properly, for traditional values. Now it's a case study in what happens when financial engineers get hold of a beloved brand and bleed it dry. Number 5. Tesco. Here's the thing about Tesco. It's not a disaster like Asda or Morrisons, it's something more insidious. It's the biggest supermarket in Britain. 1 in every £3 spent on groceries goes through Tesco. And they're using that power to run a 2-tier pricing system that locks people out, unless they play the game, which actually removed Tesco's recommended provider status because of their club card scheme. Not because club card is bad in theory, but because Tesco restricted cheaper prices to people over 18 only. That's age discrimination. You're a 17-year-old trying to buy food, you pay more. You don't have a smartphone or you're not digitally savvy enough to manage an app, you pay more. A Which customer was quoted directly saying prices without club card are too expensive. That's not a loyalty reward. That's inflating the base price and making you jump through hoops to get it back down to something reasonable. But let's talk about quality. In 2024, Panorama did an investigation into Tesco's Aldi price match range, and what they found should make you furious. Tesco chicken nuggets, marketed as matching Aldi's price, contained 39% chicken. Aldi's version, 60% chicken. Same price. Less than 2/3 the actual meat content. You're paying for water and filler and being told it's equivalent value. Tesco is ranked 6th cheapest, despite being the biggest supermarket in the country. They should have the best buying power, they should be able to negotiate the lowest prices from suppliers, but they're not passing that on to you. They're making £3.1 billion in forecast profit while reducing product quality. So the question is, if Tesco's that big and that powerful, why are they cutting corners on basics like transport hygiene and meat content? Because they can. Because market dominance means they don't have to care as much. You'll come back anyway. Where else are you going to go? Number 4. Sainsbury's. This is where things get properly dark. On the surface, Sainsbury's looks like the respectable middle-class option, nourish the nation. Quality you can trust. But scratch that surface even slightly, and it falls apart. Let's start with the loyalty card trap, because Sainsbury's does the same thing Tesco does, just with Nectar instead of Club Card, which explicitly warns shoppers that you'll pay a lot more at Sainsbury's without a Nectar card. Their February 2026 data showed significant price gaps on longer shops between customers with and without Nectar, and they're not above manipulation. Bird's Eye chicken nuggets were £5 for everyone. Then Sainsbury's introduced a Nectar offer, and suddenly the regular price jumped to £5.50. They raised the base price to make the discount look good. That's not a deal. That's a scam. The CEO, Simon Roberts, took home a pay package worth £5 million. It would take the average Sainsbury's employee 184 years to earn that. 184 years. And while he's collecting millions, the company announced 1,500 job cuts. Quality has nosedived, pre-chopped vegetables arriving slimy and rotten before the sell-by date. 59% of shoppers in a Which survey noticed a decline in fruit and vegetable quality. The value range leans heavily on ultra-processed foods instead of actual ingredients. Then, in September 2025, Sainsbury's had to recall their classic and lemon hummus because of a potentially deadly strain of E. coli called STE. Doctors warned that for elderly people, a STEC infection isn't just a stomachache, it can cause kidney failure. And this happened while national E. coli cases were already up 26%. When a major supermarket can't keep animal waste pathogens out of ready-to-eat food during a spike in infections, that's a massive failure. But here's where Sainsbury's goes beyond the usual corporate nonsense. An undercover investigation found that Sainsbury's was actively misleading the public about their hygiene ratings, and now they've rolled out live facial recognition technology. Not in the future. Right now, Sainsbury's has partnered with a company called FaceWatch, and they're scanning every single person who walks into certain stores mostly in London but expanding. This isn't just a security camera, it's biometric data collection linked to a police intelligence unit. When you walk through the door, you're getting the equivalent of a PNC check. That's a Police National Computer Check, the kind of check police run when they want to see if you're known to them. You're being treated like a suspect just for buying groceries. The system works like this. There's a silver checkpoint box mounted near the entrance, with multiple cameras. As you walk in, your face is captured, analyzed, and compared against a database in real time. If you match someone on their list, security gets an alert. If you don't match, they claim the data is deleted instantly. But that's not entirely true. Even when there's no match, they keep the regular image for 30 days, and nobody can explain why they need to do that. The data gets shared with the Metropolitan Police through an online portal. Your face, your location, your shopping patterns, exactly when you were there, exactly where you went. All recorded, all stored, all accessible to law enforcement without you having any idea it's happening. This is part of something called the Pegasus Partnership, a multi-million-pound public-private partnership between the UK government, UK policing, and the country's biggest retailers. Sainsbury's and other major supermarkets are collectively funding a dedicated national police intelligence unit. Think about that. The supermarkets have their own bespoke branch of the police, and the lifeblood of this scheme is mass biometric data collection from you, your kids, your elderly parents, everyone who walks through those doors. Facial recognition data isn't just about identification, it's location data. If there's an incident somewhere across town, they can rule you out or place you somewhere specific because they have a record of exactly where you were at an exact time. That's incredibly valuable data, both to the retail industry and to law enforcement. Sainsbury's sold this to the public by claiming it's about theft. FaceWatch put out marketing materials saying shoplifting costs UK retailers £2.2 billion per year, adding 6 pence to every transaction. 6 pence. That's the price they put on your privacy. They framed it like this: don't you want to save 6 pence? Don't you care about safety? It's weaponized public relations designed to make you drop your guard and accept surveillance because it sounds reasonable. They're counting on you thinking, well, maybe the dystopian checkpoint system isn't so bad if it saves me 6 pence on my shopping. But here's what they're not telling you. In the security field reports they're using as evidence, specifically research from USDAW, the Union of Shop Distributive and Allied Workers, customer frustration is classified as antisocial behavior. Read that again. If you complain too much because the staff are useless or the self-checkout isn't working, that can be logged as antisocial behavior. And once you're in the system for antisocial behavior, you could be banned from all participating supermarkets at the click of a button because a worker made a claim against you. Sainsbury's reports that their use of facial recognition has resulted in a 46% reduction in theft, harm, aggression, and antisocial behavior, and that 92% of offenders didn't return. Those are impressive numbers if you take them at face value. But here's the problem. When a supermarket uses sophisticated technology to rid itself of problems, that doesn't rid society of the problems. It just displaces them somewhere else. Desperate people don't stop being desperate because you took away their opportunity at Sainsbury's. They become more desperate. They go somewhere else. If all the big supermarkets adopt this technology and become miraculously free of these issues, what happens to the small independent shops that can't afford these systems? They get absolutely hammered. It's another way the biggest retailers damage small businesses. They push all the problems onto shops that don't have the resources to fight back. And if facial recognition eventually gets adopted by every shop, even the small ones, what happens when you take away every opportunity from desperate people? You get civil unrest. You get chaos in town centers. And how do you deal with that? Facial recognition in the streets. The capability exists right now, and Sainsbury's is leading the charge, overcharging you with nectar price manipulation, selling you coli contaminated food, cutting 1,500 jobs while the CEO takes home 5 million, and scanning your face like you're crossing a border checkpoint just to buy groceries. That's what Sainsbury's has become. Number 3, co-op. This one stings because the co-op is supposed to be different. It's a cooperative, owned by you, right by you. Ethical, community-focused. 175 years of doing things properly. Except they're not doing things properly, and they haven't been for a long time. The co-op's business model is built around convenience stores. and convenience stores are structurally more expensive. That's understood. But when you're marketing yourself as the ethical choice, as the community-focused alternative, charging 27% more than Aldi is hard to justify. Which did a comparison in 2003. 48 common items cost £71.70 at Co-op versus £56.53 at Aldi. 27% more expensive. And they charge you £1 just to get a loyalty card. They're the only UK supermarket that does that. You have to pay for the privilege of accessing their discounts. But let's talk about the ethics, because that's the whole brand, right? In 2024, an undercover investigation found that 37% of Co-op chickens had chemical burns from ammonia exposure. Undercover footage from 2022-1 to 2024 showed salmon being killed while still conscious, chickens dying of thirst, ducks being swung by their necks. In 2022, dead animals were found left in bins at duck farms supplying Co-op. The Humane League UK ranked Co-op last among UK supermarkets for cage-free egg commitments in 2025. 71% of their eggs still come from caged hens. They had committed to going cage-free by 2025, but in May of that year they removed the commitment from their website, citing cost concerns. So when it mattered, when it cost them money to follow through on their promises, they just quietly deleted the promise and hoped no one would notice. The Co-op positions itself as the only Fair Tax Mark certified supermarket, which is a genuine ethical win. But what good is paying fair tax when you're charging the poorest customers the highest prices and abandoning the communities that need you most? Between 2018 and 23, analysis by The Times found that Co-op closed more stores in deprived areas than any other major supermarket. Communities in Middlesbrough, Bradford, Hull, they lost their only local food source when Co-op pulled out. Elderly residents and families without cars now have to travel miles for groceries. The community-focused supermarket abandoned the communities that needed it most and kept the stores open in wealthy areas where people have options. That's not ethics, that's business strategy wearing a friendly mask. Number 2. Waitrose. Here's the thing about Waitrose. It's not bad the way Asda or Morrisons is bad. It's not collapsing under debt or failing hygiene inspections. In fact, which shoppers rate Waitrose highly for product quality and customer service? The problem is the price. Which found that Waitrose was the most expensive supermarket for a standard shop in every single month of 2025 except one. In February 2026, they were still the most expensive on the longer shopping list. You're paying for atmosphere. You're paying for the layout, the lighting, the image, the experience of feeling like you're shopping somewhere premium. And sometimes that's worth it if the food is genuinely better. But is it always? On New Year's Eve 2025, Waitrose had to do an emergency recall of their D-side mineral water because of possible glass shards inside the bottles. This is water sourced near Balmoral Castle, marketed as the height of purity. Premium pricing, premium branding, and production line failures meant customers could have been drinking actual glass. Glass shards have a similar density to water, making them nearly invisible. The 750-milliliter bottles with November or December 2027 dates were all affected. For a store that charges premium prices and positions itself as the quality option, that's a catastrophic system failure. You can't charge people like you're selling them the best and then have glass in the water. It doesn't work. And this is the broader problem with Waitrose. It's not that everything is bad, it's that you're being asked to pay significantly more for an image that doesn't always match reality. Most people can't afford to do a full weekly shop at Waitrose. It's not accessible, and for those who can, the question becomes, does the trolley justify the receipt? Sometimes yes. Often no. You're paying for the brand more than the product, and when failures like the glass shard recall happen, it exposes the gap between the image they're selling and what they're actually delivering. Number 1. Iceland. And here's where we get to the biggest trap of all, because Iceland looks like the answer. It looks cheap. It markets itself as the place mums go when money's tight. Frozen food, convenient, affordable. That's why mums go to Iceland, right? Except it's not as cheap as it looks, and it's absolutely not a replacement for a proper weekly shop. Which, placed Iceland below most major chains for range and overall quality perception. Shoppers gave it mid to low table ratings. The problem is, it's a freezer-first, convenience-led store. It's not built for balanced nutrition across a week. You can't do a proper family shop with mostly frozen processed food and limited fresh options. You end up buying the frozen stuff at Iceland, then having to go somewhere else for fresh vegetables, fresh meat, dairy, bread, all the things you need for actual meals. So you're not saving time, you're not saving money, you're just adding another stop to your shopping routine. And the fresh options it does have? The labeling is a mess. Which researchers found Iceland selling gammon joints labeled as EU and non-EU origin. That tells you absolutely nothing. Where's the meat from? Spain, Poland, Romania. Britain? Nobody knows. It's deliberately vague, and that vagueness exists for a reason. If they told you exactly where it came from, you might not buy it. Iceland's had multiple undeclared allergen recalls. Sub-rolls with undeclared barley, which is a massive risk if you're gluten intolerant. One bite could send someone to hospital. If they can't be bothered to tell you where the meat comes from or what allergens are actually in the food, how can you trust them on anything else? Customer reviews on Trustpilot show a consistent pattern that's really telling. Products launch strong, but then ingredients change over time to cut costs. Someone will say, "I've been buying these pizzas for years, and they used to be great, but now they're clearly made with cheaper ingredients. The cheese doesn't melt the same way, the base is different, it doesn't taste right anymore." Same thing with lamb burgers. People loved them, bought them regularly, then suddenly the quality drops. The meat's different. More gristle, less flavor. Iceland degrades the product slowly over time, hoping you won't notice or won't care enough to stop buying. It's a slow bait and switch. Get you hooked on something decent, then gradually make it worse, while keeping the price the same or even raising it slightly. By the time you realize it's not as good, you're in the habit of buying it. The Humane League UK ranked Iceland last for cage-free egg commitments in March 2025. 71% of their eggs still come from caged hens. They'd committed publicly to going cage-free by 2025. That was the promise. That was the deadline they set themselves. But in May of that year, right when they were supposed to deliver, they removed that pledge from their website entirely. Just deleted it. The reason they gave? Cost concerns. So when it mattered, when it would have actually cost them money to follow through on what they promised, they quietly abandoned it and hoped no one would notice. Then in July, after animal welfare groups applied pressure and it became a PR problem, they recommitted to cage-free but pushed the deadline back to 2027. So they made a promise, broke it quietly, got caught, and gave themselves 2 more years. That tells you everything about how seriously they take commitments. In 2025, Iceland was also linked to a prawn eye stalk crushing scandal. They were sourcing prawns with their eye stalks crushed or removed, and the prawns were being slaughtered without stunning. For anyone who doesn't know, crushing eye stalks is done to make female prawns mature faster for breeding, and it's incredibly cruel. The prawns are essentially tortured to speed up production, and they're killed without stunning, meaning they're fully conscious when it happens. These are the kind of practices that happen when the only priority is keeping prices down at literally any cost. Welfare doesn't matter. Transparency doesn't matter. Quality doesn't matter. Just make it cheap enough that people keep buying. Which specifically noted that Iceland is often pricier than discounters despite the budget image. When you actually compare prices properly, Iceland isn't saving you money compared to Aldi or Lidl. And because the range is so narrow, you'll end up shopping elsewhere anyway for fresh produce and basics. So you're paying more than you think for less than you need, and the quality is questionable at best. A 22/4 Which investigation found that a week's worth of Iceland-ready meals for a family of 4 cost £87, while the same family could eat healthier home-cooked meals for £64, using ingredients from Aldi, £64 versus £87. Iceland isn't the budget option. It's the convenience trap that makes you feel like you're saving money while actually costing you more and feeding your family worse. Iceland looks like a cheap answer for hard times, but it's a convenience trap that doesn't deliver on value, doesn't deliver on quality, and doesn't deliver on the nutrition your family actually needs. So where does that leave you? Because it's all well and good to say don't shop here, but people need to eat. Families need to buy groceries, and not everyone can afford to be picky. The reality is most people aren't shopping at one supermarket anymore because one supermarket doesn't cut it. You have to be strategic. You use different places for different things. That's how people are actually surviving this. First, Aldi. If you want genuine value, Aldi is the place. Which named them Britain's cheapest supermarket in both 2024 and 2025. That's not marketing. That's independent testing. And here's the part that matters. 99.7% of Aldi stores have 5-star hygiene ratings. You don't have to choose between cheap and clean. You can have both. When Panorama tested chicken nuggets, Aldi's had 60% chicken compared to Tesco's 39%. Better quality at a lower price. Everyone pays the same price. The shelf price is the real price. No apps, no age restrictions, no two-tier system. What you see is what you pay. Warehouse workers have testified that if food falls off a pallet at Aldi, it gets removed immediately. Compare that to other supermarkets, where it just gets driven over. Use Aldi for bulk basics, for meat, for genuine value you can trust. Second, Lidl. Lidl sits in the same budget category as Aldi, but with a bit more character, which named them among the cheapest UK supermarkets. Customers specifically praise the in-store bakery, which is genuinely good. Ethical Consumer and the Food Foundation have recognized Lidl for stronger sustainability efforts and healthier range moves compared to a lot of the big chains. Like Aldi, they don't do loyalty card price discrimination. Everyone pays the same. No games. Use Lidl for the bakery, for budget shopping with slightly better ethics, and for that bit of variety Aldi might not have. Third, Marks and Spencer. Now, M&S is expensive. Let's be clear about that. It's not accessible for everyone, and it's rated poor for value for money. But if you can afford it, even just for certain items, M&S has won Best UK Supermarket in the Which survey for 5 years running. 5 years. They've held that title through 2005. 98.48% of their stores have 5-star hygiene ratings, joint best with Waitrose. They're the only supermarket with 5 stars for quality of own-label products and 5 stars for quality of fresh products. Customer satisfaction is 76%, the highest of all chains. They have one of the lowest product recall rates in the industry. A former M&S supply chain inspector said they're very strict on quality, that they maintain direct relationships with farmers and producers, contracting years in advance to ensure standards don't slip. A farm supplier confirmed M&S had their own inspections beyond the standard RSPCA and Lion Code, that it's very strict, and that it's difficult to even become an M&S supplier. When you pay more at M&S, you're actually getting more. It's not fake premium. Use M&S for quality items you can trust for when it really matters that the food is good. Fourth, Ocado. If you're shopping online and you need it to actually work, Ocado is worth the cost, which made them a recommended provider for online shopping. Customers praised wide delivery slot availability and genuinely helpful drivers. Ocado reports a 99% perfect orders rate. That means delivered on time, in full, exactly as promised. Because they're online only, they're purpose-built for delivery. It's not store staff rushing to pick your order between serving customers. It's a dedicated system with advanced robotics, and that means fresher food with longer use-by dates. There are next to no substitutions. You get what you ordered. They've got a partnership with M&S, so Ocado is the only place you can get M&S food delivered. If you value your time, if you're tired of missing items and terrible substitutions from other supermarkets' online services, Ocado is where you go. It costs more, but the experience actually works. And here's the part nobody talks about. The places that never played these games in the first place. Your local butcher never sold you meat 18 days past its use-by date. Your greengrocer's vegetables don't rot in 2 days. The farmer's market never installed facial recognition or charged you premium prices for 30 to 9% chicken. Independent shops and local markets are still there, and they're not perfect, but they didn't betray you. If you can support them, if they're accessible to you, do it. Because every pound you spend there is a pound that doesn't go to corporations that have repeatedly shown they don't care about you. This isn't about being perfect, it's about being smart. The entire weekly shop has quietly changed. These supermarkets didn't decline by accident. Some were loaded with debt by private equity. Some built two-tier pricing systems to squeeze more out of you. Some cut quality while raising prices. Some installed surveillance tech while selling it as safety. And all of them are betting you won't notice or won't care enough to change your habits. But you do care. That's why you're still here. So here's what I need from you. If this video mattered, if you learned something that'll change how you shop, hit that hype button again. Share this with someone who needs to see it. Leave a comment and tell me what food or topic we should investigate next, because I'm going to keep doing this. I'm going to keep digging into what's really happening with British food, and I need to know what matters most to you. Subscribe if you haven't already, because there's a lot more coming. Until next time, stay informed, stay angry, and protect your plate.